Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Produce Buzzers podcast. We are so happy you have joined us today, and I think you will be too after the show is over, because you will learn a lot about fresh fruits and vegetables, how to select and store them, how to prepare and cook them, and surprising facts about their history and origin. We hope it inspires you to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, not only for your health, but also for your delight and pleasure as you explore their amazing world of taste and delicious flavors. Eating more of them will transform your life in so many positive ways. So settle back, relax, and get ready for another delicious adventure with the Produce Buzzers. Greetings, Produce Buzzers podcast fans. Welcome to another delicious episode of the Produce Buzzers podcast. Well, this week we celebrate National Herbs and Spices Day. June 10th, this Friday, June 10th, is dedicated to honor these delicious flavorings that make our fruits and veggies taste even better than they already do. Walk into any grocery store almost anywhere around the world, and you will see shelves lined with the incredible variety of herbs and spices that Mother Earth has to offer us. They are so readily available in our modern world that we take them for granted. But that is one of the many luxuries that the modern world has brought to us, and we're so thankful for that. For most of human history, herbs and spices were not easy to get. In fact, they were as prized as gold, silver, and other precious metals. In fact, several hundred years ago, one such spice, nutmeg, became much more valuable than gold. As a result, in the 1600s, the British and the Dutch fought over an island in Indonesia that was covered in nutmeg trees. They fought for several years over this island before agreeing to a treaty in which the Dutch kept that island in return for another island on the other side of the world. That island was Manhattan. The Dutch had essentially traded away arguably the most valuable piece of real estate in the world today for nutmeg. Spices were the cause of many other wars in Europe and Asia over the past millennium, most notably the Crusades. When the Ottoman Empire blocked the trade routes from Asia that brought spices to Europe, the British and the Europeans finally decided that was just too much, and the Crusades began. And we all know that it was the love of spices that fueled the exploration of the world by the Europeans. Christopher Columbus was searching for a quicker route to India, hoping to improve access to these delicious flavorings. Vasco da Gama found a way around the Horn of Africa, all because of spices. And Magellan became the first to circumnavigate the globe looking for them. So next time you are looking at the herbs and spices in the grocery store or in your cupboard, don't take them for granted. Realize how wealthy we are today. Well, here at Produce Buzz, we don't take herbs and spices for granted, and we dedicate this episode to celebrate these culinary delights. So to do so, we have invited a very special guest on the podcast today. Our guest is a veteran of the produce industry, having worked in it now for over 3 decades. She obtained an agribusiness degree from California Polytechnic State University in the beautiful city of San Luis Obispo on the central coast of California. Right after graduating, she went to work selling avocados for one of the biggest growers and shippers of avocados in California, Mission Avocados. And later she worked for Bolt House Farms, which is a large grower of carrots in California, most notably baby carrots. But we are all proud to say she was one of our colleagues at the Nolan Network, where she worked with Teresa marketing and merchandising various produce commodities. 4 years ago, she joined the team at Gourmet Garden, a very interesting purveyor of herbs and spices, where she serves as an account executive for the Eastern United States. Please welcome Melinda Richardson to the podcast today.
Well, thank you, sir. What a great introduction you gave me. Appreciate that.
Well, we're so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us, taking the time.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Great. So you are based in Boston, and you are now working for this wonderful company, which we want to hear more about. But first, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your career in the produce industry, and what were some of the highlights of working in the produce industry?
Well, for an industry I basically fell into, being an agribusiness major, I actually had an eye on animal farming, believe it or not. That's what I wanted to do after college. But when I graduated, the economy was not good. And I think the figure was 3% of my graduating class had confirmed jobs at the time of graduation.
Wow.
So I attended a career fair at Cal Poly, and I got invited down to Mission for an interview. And I went down for the interview, and the person that came out ahead of me was a Cal Poly grad. And the person that came in behind my interview was a Cal Poly grad. And somehow my number got pulled and I got offered a job, and I just needed a job. So I went to work for Mission on the sales desk, and I just kind of fell into produce, and I've been in it ever since. I think it's an industry that you can't just like a little or it's okay. You either love it or you don't, and you're out of it. It's one or the other. I don't think there's much in between.
Yeah.
So,
we love fruits and veggies, and we all enjoyed being in the produce industry over the years, but it is tough work, especially on the sales desk. I think that's got to be the toughest place.
yeah, and it's certainly changed a lot over the last 30 years. But after Mission, I came east. I lived my entire life within 110 miles of the California coast, and I thought, oh, there's a big world out there. And so I packed my bags and headed east to the Boston area, and went to work for Teresa at the NOLA Network, and spent a couple years with her. And then when I was having family, I needed that good old health insurance. So I had to find a full-time employment gig rather than a contracting gig. And, I've worked for, as you mentioned, Bolt House. I also work for a company called Pacific International Marketing. They do about 200 commodities, both conventional and organic. And I work for them in various roles in business development and marketing. And then I kind of stepped back from that, and I worked for Robinson Fresh for a little while. I went to a startup at Suja Juice. I followed two of my colleagues from Bolt House, came a knocking on my door and said, will you come with us into the startup? It was fun and exciting, but I learned very quickly the startup life was not for me. When your CEO is telling you you're going to be out of money by October, you start worrying about job security, and that was just not a place I wanted to be. So it was fun because in some ways, when I was at Suja, oh gosh, I don't know, 5.5 years ago now, 6 years ago now, it was like stepping back in time, because it was just go sell. There were kind of no rules. It was just go sell, which was awesome and fun. Again, to kind of go back to that mentality of just go do it, go get it done. Yeah. And then I came to Gourmet Garden, and 4 years ago, I kind of was looking to right side my work-life balance a little bit more, and wanted to get out of the national gig and having a team of people that reported to me, and that level of responsibility and pressure. And I said, you know what, I think I want to go back to like regional sales and just kind of be the maker of my own destiny again. And boy, I'm lucky that I was able to do that. And I wish now, looking back, I would have done it earlier in my career.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear that you have found that balance, because I know what the produce sale, especially if you're in California selling back east, you were probably up very, very early in the morning making those phone calls, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the produce industry has been great to me. I mean, I've met some phenomenal friends over the years, and like I said, it's either an industry you love or you hate, and so it's been good to me, and I have no complaints. I've watched the produce department transform. I mean, we went from having seasonal products to now basically a global supply and pretty much everything. I mean, there's that you can make cases are good and bad of not having seasonality so much in the department anymore, that stuff's available year round. But it's, it's been interesting to watch the transformation of the department.
That is a huge change. That's the fact that We were just talking about that on one of the latest episode, I think we recorded. We were talking about asparagus. You could only get asparagus in the springtime when we were growing up. Now it's there year round.
It's there year round. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's ultimately a good thing. There are some critics of that, and for some good reasons, but ultimately it's been a blessing. Like the spices, think about, it's only been the last 200-300 years that spices were available to the common person, because they were so expensive and not available. But now people can eat healthier by getting these things from around the globe.
Well, that's it, because most spices aren't grown here in the U.S. So
right.
we wouldn't get a lot of stuff if we weren't getting global supply. So
that's true. Well, tell us about Gourmet Garden and their herbs and spices. I think it's a very interesting story.
Gourmet Garden actually it was an Australian-based company. And it started by two brothers who were Australian scientists that were frustrated with the short-term life of culinary herbs. We call it the wilt guilt, right? You buy a bunch of parsley or a bunch of basil, and 2 days later you go to use it and it's wilted or black or just not edible. And so they were frustrated by that. And so, being scientists, they set out to figure that out, and they developed a patented process called Eva Fresh. And no, that's not a Boston accent. That's with an A.
I thought it was Australian.
Yeah,
they sort of do the same thing.
Yeah, they do. So it's called Everfresh, and I'm sure that's probably the play on why it was named that, actually.
Right.
But I'm no scientist, so I can't explain it totally. But it's basically a cold process that takes the herbs when they process the herbs, and it maintains the color, the freshness, the flavor. And, think about if you apply, a lot of times when you're doing value-added products or products that are processed, they go through a heat step or a acidification step where you add acid to it, whether that's lemon juice or something chemical to it to raise the pH or lower the pH, whichever the way that is. I guess lower. Acetic is lower. Had to go back to my biology days there. And that's what traditionally, allows the product to have a longer shelf life. But they developed this where you didn't have to apply heat or acidification to it. And so it allows the herbs to stay that way. And they developed herb paste. And with this technology that we continue to use to this day. And so they developed that technology and actually sold it to a juice company in Australia in the late 80s. And then another partner kind of came in, and they started playing with herbs and to make it where it could be commercialized. And they worked with growers, and they developed a whole processing plant and stuff. And so in the 1990s, they launched Gourmet Garden Paste in Australia.
Okay, and so those are by paste. Can you explain to our listeners what you mean by that?
Well, what is the first thing you think of when you think of paste, is other than the stuff that you ate as a kid, right? That they don't make
right.
Paste is toothpaste. It's kind of, they're herbs in a tube, much like a toothpaste tube, and it's the consistency of depending on the item and what it is. It's almost the consistency of toothpaste, a little bit more liquid than toothpaste. That you can use instead of fresh herbs. And so you squeeze it out, and they last for a long time. The shelf life on them is anywhere from 90 to 120 days. And little known fact is if you freeze them, you can keep them for up to a year. And they don't freeze solid. So you can use them right out of the freezer.
Well, that's great. That certainly is a lot longer use life than the fresh herbs. Tell us, what are some of the flavorings that you put in the paste?
Garlic, ginger, basil, cilantro, and stuff. And then they develop some different blends over time. we've kind of, gone back and forth with more blends in our portfolio and less, depending, and some of that's as consumer tastes and preferences change too. So in our lineup, we have some blends, like we have a Thai paste that's a blend of 4 or 5 different herbs to get kind of a Thai flavoring. We are looking at more innovation in that space now, moving forward to get into more blends as consumers become more familiar with blends.
Right.
And especially since our parent company now is McCormick. We were purchased by McCormick in 2016.
Okay.
And
big spice company. So
yeah, just a little known spice company out there. And so, we're looking at some of, I'll call them McCormick's legacy flavorings, think Montreal steak and, things like that, and how taco seasoning, things like that. How can we bring that to our side of the world in the fresh arena?
Got it.
And do you have one that is for Italian seasoning?
We do. We have an Italian seasoning, both in our paste line. And then what I didn't quite get to in our evolution is that in 2014, the brothers developed a second patented process to lightly dry herbs. And it's, for lack of better words, for us laymen, it's like a giant microwave. And it dries them, but not totally. And what the difference is between our lightly dried product, which has to be refrigerated and goes through cold process as well, versus center store, say even McCormick's spices in the center store, which are shelf stable, is the process allows for 30% of the essential oils in the herbs to be maintained. And that's where a lot of your flavor comes from. And so they reconstitute when you put them in a sauce or put them in cooking. And so it makes it much closer to a fresh herb flavor rather than a dried herb flavor.
Microwave, Rick. Microwave. Big microwave.
I actually do that myself. I actually preserve my own herbs that way.
Yeah, but you better get a patent on it, because this sounds like they're right on your heels.
I was kidding. That's the only thing I haven't tried is fresh herbs in the microwave.
We have a running, Melinda may not know, we have a running joke. Almost every episode, Rick brings up one of his microwave recipes for veggies. And so we really rib him about it. So.
Well, there's some good ones out there. I microwave my corn a lot. I'll be honest. I take the shortcut with corn.
Right.
You do it in the husk?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
It also makes it easy to husk.
Yeah. You can't make it any better than that.
See, like-minded consumers here.
Yeah. Is there some type of an oil base or something in that paste, or how they?
There is canola oil or sunflower oil in a lot of the pastes that help maintain the freshness, but also keep the microbes at bay, if you will.
So I've tried both of your products. I prefer the ones that are in like the little bowls.
Bowls, cups, yeah.
Those were a nice option for me because I would die with basil, parsley.
What do you mean you die with basil? It would go bad.
Well, because if you don't use the whole amount of basil, you keep it on the counter, it dies, it wilts. Right. Okay. If you put it in the refrigerator, then it'll turn black, but it's still usable. It just doesn't have the green color that you're looking for. So this was a nice option for me to have in the refrigerator drawer to not be beholden to fresh.
I always hate when I have a recipe that calls for like 1 teaspoon of fresh parsley. Well, then you have this big old bunch of parsley and you're like, I hate throwing it away, but what else am I going to make with it? And so that's why I love our product line, just because it has opened a lot of doors to that, because you can have that fresh herb experience without kind of losing the rest of it, or something that you use in small doses. I actually use both product lines, but for very different reasons. Like I typically use the paste when I cook, like if I'm making sauces or stews or to marinate meat, I'll use paste as well. where I use the lightly dried, much like I'd use a fresh herb, where I'd sprinkle over the top or something like that. When I make like pasta sauce, I'll use both because I use like the garlic paste, but then I use lightly dried Italian herb.
Can you explain to our listeners about the differences in those two products?
The bowls are a lightly dried product, so
Okay.
they're
Right.
A chop. So we take the basil and it's it goes through this process, the giant microwave, if you will,
Right.
and lightly dries them, and then we chop them up. So it's just
Okay.
a chopped bowl of we call them bowls or cups because they're in little plastic
Right.
containers at retail, but it's just chopped and prepped, basically ready to roll herbs. And we don't have as many products in those, and those are all, other than Italian seasoning, which is a blend of 3 herbs, they're all single herbs. So we have a lightly dried ginger, we have a lightly dried parsley, a lightly dried cilantro, lightly dried basil, and then Italian herbs. And those were introduced in 2014.
Okay.
And they, what we found is they're just a different usage usually for our consumers. I mean, you can use paste and lightly dried kind of interchangeably if you want to. It's really kind of what the consumer prefers.
Yeah. Right.
I just find that I use the lightly dried, more so, like instead of chopping my own herbs, I do that. For our lightly dried products, if you open up the containers, they have an aroma and a flavor and everything that is really, really close to their fresh brethren, if you will. And some of the
I would agree with that.
And some of the reason for that too is that in the process, part of the processing for both our paste and lightly dried is that we process the herbs within 8 hours of harvesting them. So all of our herbs are grown within 5 hours of our processing facility. And then they're brought in and processed within 8 hours. And so they don't start anything we harvest, right, starts dehydrating right away, being severed from, its roots and stuff. And so these are the closest things you're going to get to fresh herbs without having a fresh herb.
Right. Okay. So that's what I want to know. And I think that it is really lovely for a garnish because it does maintain the integrity of the chop.
It does.
How long does the lightly dried last?
Lightly dried
Depending on the herb, I suppose.
It depends on the herb, but there's 75 days to 90 days.
Okay, that's great.
Yes.
And then we usually tell consumers within 4 weeks of opening that cup, use it up because it starts, dehydrating from there. So you will lose a little bit of the flavor profile, if you wait it out the whole 75 days or something. I still use them. I also throw them in the freezer and use them out of the freezer.
Oh, that's a good idea. Does the basil discolor?
It does not, no, because of the process. So it will not discolor, which is lovely when you go to, grab something, because that's my biggest thing with basil is it always turns black on me.
Yeah.
What have you learned about the health value of herbs, Melinda?
There's a lot of health benefits to herbs. Every herb has a different, herbs have been used in medicine for years. There's different medicinal benefits. It's a great way to get flavor into your food. The number one, I'll call it spice, which isn't really a spice, but in the US is salt, used as salt, yet other countries in the world don't use salt or use very little of it. And actually in our world headquarters, McCormick's, salt is not available in the cafeteria. There is every spice and herb and everything known to man in that cafeteria. Salt is not in there because you can get flavor without using salt. But we're so ingrained, especially here in the US, to put salt into everything and salt to enhance flavor, which it certainly can enhance flavor. But we also know there's not some great health benefits when there's too much salt in your diet.
If you were going to substitute a herb for salt, which one would you use?
Really depends on the dish. It depends what you're making or and also how you're preparing it, and look, herbs can be polarizing. Certain people don't like basil, certain people don't like cilantro. Cilantro probably the biggest one. Genetically, there's some of you that don't do cilantro. I personally love it, would eat it by the bunch, but I know there's others that, and it's not, I just don't like it. It's actually a genetic thing that tastes like soap or dirt. Is what I'm told. If you have that certain gene where you can't really eat cilantro. But so it really depends on what it is, Rick, of what you're cooking.
I
Can you
bet you
take a-
garlic would be the thing that if you were stuck on a desert island, you didn't have salt, you'd probably put garlic in there.
Unless you're a person that doesn't like garlic. I personally love garlic, but yeah, or a vampire.
What herb or spice have you used? Have you learned to use since you've been working for them that you didn't use before?
Probably the one thing I use all the time now at home that I never used prior is ginger. Ginger is one of the things I love ginger. I love the ginger, flavor and everything, but working with ginger root and, dealing with it, not going to happen, And so, I mean, ginger, I use it. Yeah. And now I use it in both savory and sweet dishes and stuff. Some of my favorite recipes with our ginger are actually desserts, and utilizing it that way. And so, and ginger is a phenomenal, anti-inflammatory. It's, great for digestion, all of those things. So ginger is probably the item I use the most that I didn't use prior to coming here.
What's the most popular product for Gourmet Garden?
Ginger and garlic paste are two of the most popular, and then right behind, depending on the time frame, lightly dried basil is up there in the top 3 as well. Sometimes is number 1, sometimes is number 2, sometimes is number 3, followed by lightly dried parsley, and then it's kind of a differing race between. In garlic, we actually have 3 different garlic pastes. We have a smooth garlic paste, we have a chunky garlic paste, so much more like a minced garlic, and then we launched a roasted garlic, which gives you a much sweeter flavor, with that roasted taste. So we have 3 different garlic pastes, but they're all in their, top 10 items. And then the green herbs, cilantro, parsley, basil, they're up there.
I'm on your website right now, and I see this would be really perfect for me for the jalapeno stir-in paste, because I don't like it hot. So like a little squirt and I'd be good. And then Edwin would use the entire
on one cracker.
tube. Right.
Yeah. Jalapenos are our newest item. I mean, we've had it came into distribution right about the time the pandemic hit. But yeah, that was a newer thing. We were trying to, look at what gives the consumer value, right? And what don't they like handling or isn't necessarily accessible to consumers. And so jalapeno is pretty well known in the US. It's kind of one of those things that consumers that aren't lovers like Edwin is of jalapenos, that, they don't want to necessarily mess with it. So this, was a good value for them. And,
that would be one of the best advantages.
Yeah,
not having to slice it, get it on your fingers, put it in your eyes.
Have the gloves on, don't touch your face.
Exactly. We've actually talked about expanding the peppers to have kind of a mild, medium hot. We've looked at habanero, we've looked at red jalapeno too, which I think it's pretty paste, because it's red, just for some color in our line that's green, and more green. And then, we've looked at some of the really hot peppers, but I think there's such a limited audience for some of those really hot, like Carolina Reaper, ghost pepper type thing, that, I'm not sure if we'd ever innovate there. We'll see. But
I've become so desensitized to the heat of peppers that jalapenos taste like bell peppers to me.
Because you burn all your taste buds off.
I know.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I like a lot of spice too. So
that's where I learned that in California, living in, we grew up here in North Carolina, but I went to California soon after college, and that's where I began to develop the love of spicy foods.
Yeah, no, I do too. That's the thing I still miss. The second I hit the ground in California, I am on the all Mexican, all diet all the time.
Maybe I shouldn't take the time to tell this story, but when I moved back from California to Plymouth to work with Teresa, my wife and I went to this restaurant and we were looking for something kind of spicy, and they had chili on the menu. So we we ordered the chili, and the waitress said, "No, you can't have it." And I said, "What do you mean you can't?" She goes, "It's too spicy. Everybody who orders it sends it back." And we said, "Well, we'll take our chances. We like really spicy food." So she says, "Okay, but if you want to send it back, I'm not going to let you send it back because I warned you." And so she brought this big pitcher of water and set it on the table full of ice. She said, "I'm bringing this so that you have something to wash that down with." So she brings the chili. We tasted. It was like ketchup.
Yeah, it was mild, right?
There was no spice at all in it.
Yeah.
Are all your herbs grown in Australia now still, or are you starting to look for other growing regions?
No, they're all in Australia now. There's talk of building a processing plant other parts of the world, especially now being owned by McCormick, and them having a global presence basically in all the different countries across the globe. But for now, everything's done in Australia. And not unfortunately, but because of the process and everything needing to be processed within 8 hours of harvest, we can't really fly them over here or fly them anywhere else.
Right.
So yeah, currently everything's still done in Australia, which has been great fun during the pandemic and with some of the shipping challenges and stuff. But,
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
right. But yeah.
And what areas of Australia is this grown in?
We're on the Palm Coast. So that's where our processing facility is. So everything's kind of, like I said, within a 5-hour radius around there is where everything's grown.
So Australia, that little section of Australia, has become an herb garden thanks to Gourmet Gardens. That's great. The big spice company, McCormick, recognized the potential, the success and the potential for Gourmet Gardens, and decided to buy it a few years ago. I read that they have $6 billion in sales revenue every year and operate in over 170 countries. What can you tell us about your parent company, McCormick?
McCormick has always been kind of the market leader in spices and herbs. The company's been around forever and a day, and that's how they were born. And then, McCormick owns 50 other brands. Many household name brands that, quite frankly, I didn't know McCormick owned until I came here. But they look at themselves as a flavor company. So we're a flavor company. We have a consumer products division that sells to retail, and then we have what we call a flavor solutions division. So we provide flavoring to basically pretty much every other food company known to man. Whether that's in snack food flavoring, fast food flavoring, beverage flavoring, you name it, we do it. So there's kind of the two sides of the business with it. And, we have operations all over the world because we source from all over the world. Within the McCormick portfolio, we have different spices. So we have kind of our core line, the red cap, as we call it. So it's the most familiar McCormick with the red caps on top, red and white bottles. McCormick has what they call a gourmet line. So a higher end product, a little more niche, if you will, in the way it's grown, or a varietal type or things like that. And so they have a gourmet line. A lot of
does that have a different branding? Is it McCormick? It's
called McCormick Gourmet, okay. And they're in green glass bottles. They're all in glass. Yeah. And then, so there's those different things, and you see it in vanilla too. Like, McCormick's obviously very well known for vanilla, but we have like a small batch of vanilla now that's really high end for, the foodies out in the world. Not all spices are created equal, I guess I will say. So
okay,
they can range so much in price, the different brands. So that's good. That's good.
But I have tried the McCormick with the green tops too, and I gravitate to McCormick because of course that's what I was raised on.
All of us were.
Yeah.
And I look at it as a consumer myself of what are you using it for, right? If I'm making chocolate chip cookies, I don't know if it's regular vanilla or if it's the frou-frou one. And like, I'm perfectly content with my chocolate chip cookie with regular vanilla in it. So I don't need to go get the $42 bottle of it, and try that. I'm sure that, it gives you, I think I would say whatever you're using it in. If you're using it to enhance your dish, if you're using it as the primary flavoring of that dish, maybe if you were making a vanilla custard or something, you might want to go to that higher end. I mean, that's not me, but so there is differing, kind of varieties in there. And the other thing too is that your herbs and spices, I grew up in the household where if you had turmeric from 1972 in the year 2000 in your cabinet, you used it. That can lasted in there forever, right? And no, they do degrade over time, and they definitely you want to replace them because they will lose flavor over time, and you won't get the same eating experience out of them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good activity for National Herbs and Spices Day. Check your cabinet for your herbs and spices and make sure
clean out your spice cabinet.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do Christmas time.
Yeah. So that's great.
For sure.
Well, this has been fantastic. Any more you want to tell us about Gourmet Garden and/or McCormick?
I just, go out and try something new, try a new flavor, find a recipe with something you never cooked with or something that you're curious about and try it. I mean, I have been lucky enough to, be a part of this large entity and have kind of access to some of these things at my fingertips. And so I've tried different things, and it's amazing when you go outside your comfort zone. And that can be true even in the produce department, right? I mean,
yes,
pick up a dragon fruit or pick up something you've never tried. I mean, my kids were the kids at school that had the gold kiwis or had the dragon fruit or had the prickly pear that everybody went, what's that? And they go, oh, try it. They were, and then my friends were going, where the heck do I buy this thing that your kid had me try?
And then for people who don't eat fruits and veggies that often because they just, they're kind of boring. Gourmet Garden and McCormick can help you start to love those veggies.
And try the different flavorings, and use, especially, right, vegetables. There are those of us that, didn't love vegetables probably growing up because, our mothers boiled them to death, and, ended up with these.
We've heard that before.
But, try different things and, flavor them up, and you can do it with, spices. I mean, I hated Brussels sprouts until I went to Teresa's house for dinner one night, and Teresa made Brussels sprouts, and I love them, and I eat them probably at least once a week.
Wow.
Now,
that's a great story.
Because I tried them in a different way, and I've had the opportunity of traveling a lot throughout my career, so eating out at business dinners and things, and so I've tried so many different foods being out, and so it introduces you to stuff. I think people are afraid to try new things sometimes and go, oh, I don't like that.
And getting that variety of things in the fruit and veggie world especially it has its health benefits. So we encourage that as well. So I appreciate you doing that.
And try different types of cooking styles too. I've learned I always loved salad. And there were, certain vegetables I ate, but I was not a big vegetable person outside of that. But I've learned with the use of my air fryer and roasting, I will eat almost any vegetable if you roast it or you air fry it versus boiling or steaming or whatever. I grill a lot of veggies. McCormick has a massive grilling platform with their Grill Mates line of things. And so, I've grilled pineapple, I've grilled broccoli, I grill different things now too. And, sometimes just a different flavor profile. Sometimes, somebody hates broccoli, but you get it in a different, cooking preparation. It takes on a whole other life.
Yeah. Good advice for everyone.
Yeah, that is good advice.
So when you say they have a massive grilling platform, is that a website that has lots of grilling recipes, or?
They have a whole line. It's called the Grill Mates line. So that's where Montreal steak came from.
Yeah.
And they make, all different kinds of seasonings and stuff in that Grill Mates line. And pretty much any flavor profile you can find in there, from Carolina barbecue that's, mustard based barbecue to whatever. And they do dry rubs, they have wet rubs, they have different things in that Grill Mates platform. So some of them are packets, right? So they're found with your dry gravy mix and that kind of section. And then some are also in the spice aisle. But they're just different flavor profiles. They have little packets that you add water and or oil to make a marinade for meats, or fish. And they have everything from garlic herbs, citrus herb, barbecues, chipotles. They, kind of every flavor profile. And I love those as a go-to, like on a, I get out of work at 5 o'clock or 5:30 and everybody goes, "What's for dinner?" And I go, "Oh, I have no idea." And so those are great because it's a 30-minute marinade. I learned the greatest trick ever. If you massage your marinade and your meat, you can do a 30-minute or a 24-hour marinade in 5 minutes by massaging that marinade into your meat. So you take your chicken or your beef or pork or whatever you're putting it in, a nice thick like freezer bag, Ziploc bag, and you just massage it like you're giving it a massage for 5 minutes, and that marinade gets right in that meat. It's like it sat in marinade for 24 hours. It's the best thing ever. Because I'm not good at planning ahead, if you haven't figured that out yet.
Well, that's a great tip. I've often been caught in that scenario where I really wanted to grill some chicken or meat, but I wanted it to have a great marinade on it. So thanks for that tip. And thanks for all the other helpful information and interesting information you gave to our listeners today. We really appreciate that. So as a reward, we've got a couple of fun segments that we do here on the Produce Buzzers podcast with our guests.
Well, Edwin, it was hard for me to find a homegrown for this week, but I mean, I came up with something, but it's really bad. So
well, that's that's what we wanted, Teresa.
What's a homegrown?
Okay.
So, every episode, or almost every episode, we've missed it a few times, but Teresa loves her puns.
Her puns, yes, I'm aware of Teresa's puns.
So,
actually, I have one I was going to send you, Teresa.
Oh, good.
Well, why don't you tell it to us?
I have to find it now because I actually thought of it this morning when I was like, oh, I found that pun I was going to send to Teresa and I never did send it. So I'll have to dig it up again because I see these things once in a while and go, oh, Teresa would love this.
So we decided she's found a lot of fruit and veggie puns. So we try to do one in each episode. And we call that segment Home Grown. And when she tells it, we know it's going to be bad. So after she gives the punchline, we all groan. Have to groan. Most of our guests are too nice to Teresa. They don't groan. But Melinda, you have to groan today.
Okay. I can groan.
Okay, so should I introduce Homegrown?
Go for it.
All right. So, Produce Buzzers podcast fans, it's time for your favorite segment on the Produce Buzzers podcast. I know you hate it. Come back. Don't go away. You have to stay and listen to another Homegrown.
No.
Teresa, what have you got for us today?
A herb farmer had heard that music would actually help his plants grow better. So he went far and wide trying different kinds of music. And what musician do you think he chose as the very best for growing herbs?
Peaches and herb.
I think
Good one.
Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Good one. Good one. Good
Was that
one.
it? No, that
Red
wasn't
Hot
it.
Chili Peppers.
Okay.
No, Melinda, you got a guess?
I don't. I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the herb farmer found that his favorite musician for growing herbs was Elvis Parsley.
Oh. That's good.
I like your answers better.
We all
That's
three
fine.
came up with some good ones, huh?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right.
All right.
Okay. So sorry, Melinda, to put you through that. But we have another segment which won't be quite as painful, I don't think. We love to do little trivia quizzes here on Produce Buzzers podcast. And as you probably would guess, the trivia we do is about everything about fruits and veggies. So everybody get ready to play. Today's trivia questions will be about surprise herbs and spices. So I will ask the questions. You shout out your answers. Whoever gets the most right answers wins. Okay? All right, let's get ready. The first ones are kind of easy. They'll get a little harder. Question number 1. This herb is the most widely used herb in the United States.
Parsley.
Hey, way to go.
Ah.
Okay, this spice gives pizza its characteristic flavor.
Oregano.
Hey, Cynthia.
Ah, she's a winner.
Okay, the name of this spice or herb spice comes from the French word meaning nail. Not surprisingly, they look like nails.
Oh,
I was
dear.
gonna
I
say,
should know
Teresa
that one.
speaks
Caraway?
French.
Yeah, Teresa, that one's yours. You said
Caraway?
nails?
Yeah, nails. Not like fingernails, but like nails that Craig would be hammering.
Clove?
Clove, yes. Way to
Oh,
go,
well done.
Melinda. The name of this wise-sounding herb comes from the Latin word salia, meaning to save.
Sage.
Sage.
Hey, Teresa. Okay. Long a symbol of remembrance, the name of this herb comes from a Latin word for sea dew.
Sea dew? What
Sea
is that?
dew, like dew on the grass, but sea dew.
SEADEW?
Yes. And, yeah.
I guess that's the
It
like
also
the
can
spray.
be. It also can be the a woman's name.
Marjoram?
Oh no, no, that was a good guess. But try another one.
Sea dew.
Simon and Garfunkel sang about this with 2 or 3 other herbs.
Rosemary.
Hey.
Oh.
Okay, this is an easy one. This is the most expensive spice in the world.
Saffron.
Hey, Melinda.
That
All right,
came
I
out in
wasn't-
stereo.
Since we have to sign off now, we have to end it here. So that's all the questions. Let's check the scores. Let's see. Teresa had 2 right answers. Cynthia had 2 right answers. And Melinda had 2 right answers. Congratulations. It's a 3-way tie. So
Yeah,
congratulations.
But we're out of time.
Very
THYME.
good.
You should have had that for the groans.
Yes.
Excellent,
Beautiful.
Cynthia. So thank you so much, Melinda, for joining us on the show today. It was great. We learned a lot. We're looking forward to trying more of the Gourmet Garden products. They sound so delicious. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for having me. It was great fun. Nice chatting with you all.
Great.
Thanks for spicing things up for us.
Oh, nice.
Wrong. Goodbye. Thanks a
Bye,
lot,
guys.
everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in to the Produce Buzzers podcast, brought to you by Produce Buzz, the gathering place for lovers of fresh fruits and veggies. We hope you were entertained a bit and educated a lot about fresh produce. Be sure to join us next time, and please tell your friends to do so as well. Like, share, and comment on our Produce Buzz Facebook page, and check out our website at www.producebuzz.com. There you will find articles about fresh fruits and veggies, how to select, store, and prepare them, as well as lots of interesting facts about all the wonderful bounty the earth provides for us. Until next time, be fruitful and don't forget to veg out.